What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. As always, I am your host, Adam Labar, and today I'm stoked to have a conversation with another Adam, yet another conversation with this Adam even. Adam Roach, really looking forward to digging into a little bit more business and family life of yours. If you can, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us about your business.
You got it, Adam. Hey, thanks for having me again. This is going to be a really fun experience talking about business and being a dad, because these are two things that I love and have passion for. Charleston, South Carolina is where I live. Not native to here. Been here for almost 15 years, though. Grew up in the amazing state of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a Hoosier through and through. Went to Indiana University. Have two children right now. They are 17 and 15, a boy and a girl. Have an amazing wife, and man, we're truly blessed. In the business space, I have a coaching community that is a global coaching community called I Love Coaching, and we serve coaches in the space of launching, building, scaling, and exiting their coaching business. And we have successfully now helped just south of 500 coaches all around the world do one of those three things, and it's really fun. Today I was had the fortunate opportunity to do a lot of case studies. Well, I say a lot, maybe 4 of them with coaches internally, and to get the feedback, man, that's where feedback is the breakfast of champions, if you ask me. Right? Yeah. That's really cool. So yeah, I'm ready to dive in here and let's rock and roll. I'll follow your lead.
Yeah, it's funny. If feedback is a breakfast of champions, if you're willing to eat it, right? Too many people hear the feedback and they're like, no, I don't like that served at my restaurant, and they just ignore it. And it's like, yes, you still need to sit down to a whole bowl of feedback.
Yep. So, I'll eat my peas when I'm told to eat my peas, and absolutely, you got to, because I mean that's where growth lives, right? Growth lives in being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, fine, I did that well, I didn't do that well, and this is the feedback I'm hearing. So am I going to change? Am I not going to change? Yeah. And that's just how I've always lived. So yeah, I'm excited to expose a lot of that.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
And I mean, I would imagine, especially in the coaching world, you've got to be open to that, right? Because both being coached and coaching requires you to be able to live in that world of feedback receiving and giving.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my father was an Olympic swim coach, and we'll talk more about that. So having him as dad and also having him as a coach in the swimming space when I was a swimmer a long time ago. Feedback is only going to make you better, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter. Just sit down, shut up, and listen is the way that I was always taught. And you can either hear it and choose to take action, or you can hear it and choose not to take action. That's the only thing that you can do. And if you choose to take action and you're listening to someone that's been there and done that before, you'll probably have success. But if you don't implement, you're not going to probably have the success that you want. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, black and white is the way I look at it.
Very much so. So you mentioned your dad being an Olympic swim coach, which is I'd love to kind of rewind and see what that was like growing up, because I would imagine there's a little bit of intensity behind somebody who's an Olympic swim coach at that level. So what was it like for you growing up as a young boy, and then kind of looking at your dad and trying to follow his lead?
You know what? I don't think I even realized what my dad did until I was probably in my 11, 10, 12, 13 range, somewhere around there, seeing in our hallway, walking down the hallway in our house, seeing my dad on magazine covers, right? Seeing him on Swimming World magazine covers. And again, even then, to me, that was just like another picture on the wall. I didn't really comprehend what it was. Growing up, though, the grandson of a farmer in Indiana, that was where I would say I learned a lot of foundational type stuff. Seeing Grandpa on the farm, knowing that his dad was a farmer as well. So I jokingly say that I was the first Roach off of the farm in Indiana. that I didn't get my hands dirty in the dirt like they did. But watching their hard work, watching their simple yet complicated life, right? And I mean simple because it was just cows and chickens and either corn or soybeans. It's as simple as it gets. But it wasn't easy, right? It was up at the crack of dawn, just like the movie show, and it was to bed when the sun went down. I mean, that was lifestyle for my grandfather. And my grandmother was, I mean, she was hardcore, right? It was like, have you been playing out on the farm? Yes. Okay. Take all your clothes off. We don't want the smell of cow manure in our house. So we're going to hose you down before you come in. It's like, Grandma, I'm naked. She's like, I don't care. I've seen naked boys before, get naked. Let me hose you down. So, simple little fun things like that really built foundational stuff. And then watching my father, I watched him, and this is a fun story, but I'll say it this way. I watched him almost do what my grandfather did, just not on the farm. Right? I watched him develop his habit of getting up at 4:00 in the morning. Instead of going to the farm, he'd go to the pool. And if we had people living with us, which I didn't really understand at the time when I was really young, I just thought I had older siblings, but people would live with us, athletes would live with us, and he would train them. And that's just how it worked. But watching him and seeing him, well, as I got older, seeing him leave early in the morning because I started going with him because I was a swimmer as well. And then coming home with him, I realized, wow, this is just like Grandpa. Up before the sun came up and down you went when the sun went down. I mean, it was hard work. So hard work was something that was just expected in our household. And I say that now, fast forward now, this is 2020. And I'd paid money through an organization that GoBundance that I'd been a member of since 2013 at that time. Ed Milet had come, spoke to us at an event, and I raised my hand to donate some money and get some time with him. And we were supposed to be in person, and there was a very small group of us, maybe 5 or 6, but because of COVID, it turned into a Zoom. And this was, it couldn't have been a bigger blessing. So we had the Zoom, and there was 5, 6 of us on the Zoom, and Ed and the guys, but I had my son sitting off to the side. And because I didn't know if he could be on or not, and I didn't know what the content was really going to be like. It could have been, adult rated, I would say. But he sat there through the entire thing, and it was really, really powerful. It came time for Q&A, and I grabbed him, and he knows I do this every once in a while. But let's see here, that was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, so he would have been 11. I grabbed him, put him on my lap. I said, Ed, this is my son Addison. And Addison, why don't you ask Mr. Milet here a question? And without blinking, he said, and we had not rehearsed this, and this was just so cool. He said, who's been the most impactful person in your life and why? And he said, Addison, I'm on a call here with a bunch of millionaires, and that's the best question anybody's ever asked me. And he said something that is so related here to this podcast. He said, well, I'm going to tell you who it was. And for many of us that know Ed's story, his dad being an alcoholic and everything that he went through, he said, my dad was my inspiration through my life, of the highs and the lows. He said, but Addison, I'm going to tell you something that I'm sure you get from your dad. He goes, it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. And he said, I know you're catching a lot of things from your dad and his habits and his discipline and those, as he's building his businesses and building the family, I'm sure you're catching a lot. He goes, I caught a lot from my dad. So I share that story because I caught so much from my dad. He passed in 2019, and I got to give his eulogy. And that was one thing that I said in his eulogy, was that my dad was not the kind of dad that would sit you down and say, son, let me teach you something, or let me tell you something. He literally lived by example. And so I said it was, and this was funny, but this is before the Ed Milet conversation. I said, I caught so much from my dad. I caught so much from my grandfather that I didn't even realize I was catching it. And to this day, I still live through that lens of the way that both my grandfather and my father just worked, right? Yeah. And work is a relative term, just hard work. And it was so cool. So I'm glad my son got to hear that. And I'm glad that Ed said that, because it kind of put a bow on this whole little story here.
What's going on, everybody? I wanted to jump in and take a second to tell you about the awesome team over at Wise VAs. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we can feel a bit overwhelmed with mundane tasks that eat up our valuable time, and it's time to reclaim that schedule, all right? It's time to stop doing some of those $10 an hour jobs and give them back to an elite group of talent that are there specifically to help you and help you stay in your zone of genius. So delegate those $10 an hour tasks to focus on more $1,000 an hour tasks. Reclaim what matters most in your life, which is your time. Get that amazing team of elite remote talent that is there to help support you and make sure that you are giving back the best to your company. So schedule a free strategy call at getwisevas.com/Adam. That is getwisevas.com/Adam. It is an amazing group, an amazing team. They do an awesome job with everything that they've got going on there. If you have some tasks on the side, whether it's administrative, whether it's editing, whether it's recording, whatever it is, they have got an assistant for you, someone who is going to be able to help you out and take some of those tasks off of your plate. I thank Wise VAs every day for helping me process all of these podcasts, helping me take care of a bunch of stuff in the background. And I definitely would recommend them over to you. So again, getwisevas.com/Adam. All right. Thanks a lot. Back to the show. Yeah, I've been saying that for, I don't know, probably since the first podcast I recorded on this and before, is that more is caught than taught. And if you could sit down and just represent what it means, and I tell my boys all the time, and anybody who listens to this podcast heard me say it 100 times, and my goal is to make them better men than me. Right. The only way to raise them to be better men than me is to represent what a good man looks like and then tell them when I'm screwing up. So that way they can say, hey, daddy screwed that up, so I know I can improve on that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to help them be a better man than me. But it's one of those things that we need to be constantly aware of as we're walking through our life, is what are our kids seeing us do? Same thing with my daughter. Am I representing what a good husband looks like, what a good dad looks like, so that she knows what to look out for when it's time for her to go get married, Oh, yeah. And it's a scary proposition, because I look at myself and go, what am I doing so terribly right now? Because I know there's a lot. So,
I love being a dad. I think it's one of the most rewarding, if not the number one rewarding thing that I could personally do on this planet. And let's see, where are we at? This is probably earlier this year. My son sent me a text. He was on his way to a tennis tournament, and he went to a church camp for the first time 2 years ago. And I wasn't sure of the impact it had on him. I jokingly say that I got a lot of God in me, because I was raised a good Catholic boy, so I got a lot of guilt there. But then when I grew up in Los Angeles, I say I grew up in Los Angeles because that was my early business days. I was raised in the Jewish culture, and then now I'm in the South, so I'm a good Christian, right? So I cover the gamut a little bit. And so I wasn't sure what he was catching because he's in a tennis academy. Both my kids go to a tennis academy, and they're homeschooled at the tennis academy. And so they've started to introduce spirituality at the academy. So he goes off 2 summers ago, and he goes to church camp, basically. And he comes back, and it was good, right? He enjoyed going to church again. And this year he went again. This time he took his sister with him. And he comes back, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. And he's like, Dad, he sends me a text on his way to a tennis tournament. He says, I forgot to tell you. I was like, all right, what's that? And he says, I'm ready to get baptized. And I was like, that's beautiful, son. And I said, well, the neat part about that is we will make this happen. Not only will we make this happen, we're going to have the biggest celebration in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, that we can possibly have. And he asked me, and this was really powerful. He said, have you been baptized? And I said, well, funny you should ask. I was baptized as a baby, being a Catholic boy. I said, but as an adult, I would get baptized again. He said, will you do it with me? I said, nice. Just the raw emotion to know that coming from him, man, it was a powerful moment. And so we get baptized. We have an incredible baptism here in the Ocean, and we had, 30, 40 people, my wife invited, and it was a really, really special day. And fast forward a couple Sundays later, we're having a worship night at our church. And we're there with some parents, and Addison and his buddies are all up front worshiping. And I looked at the mom and I said, I know at 17 I was in some mosh pits, but they weren't at a church. and we definitely weren't singing this type of music. So I think we're either doing something really right or God has a really big hand in this, because I don't know if this is being caught by me, but he's definitely being caught in a good spiritual light. So that was a really powerful, neat moment for me recently here, that's giving his life to Christ and knowing that at 17, I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
And the direction he's going to be going in comparison to the direction that I went at 17 in the cornfields of Indiana.
Yeah.
With trucks and guns and beer and girls, it was
and all
crazy.
That stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So anyway, it's just being a parent is so rewarding.
Yeah, that's. I'm curious to rewind and what would your dad say you were like at 17? If you were to have your dad sitting right here next to you and be like, Dad, what was I? What kind of son was I at 17 years old? At 16 years old?
Yeah, that's fun. He would say good, and I would tell you why. Is staying in the spiritual conversation, man. I had such a fear of God, right? I had Catholic boy guilt always. And my parents held over me confession, right? That if I did something, I was going to go to confession. And I can still hear that metal door opening and the priest being on the other side, son, tell me what you have done wrong, and to confess. And I was like, I'm sure as hell not going to go back into that little chamber ever again. So I'm going to be good. So what would he say? He would say that I was a good child. I was a good 17-year-old, though. Probably he wouldn't say this because he went to Catholic school. He was a Catholic high school kid, all boys. My mom was all girls Catholic school, but he stopped going to church. So he wouldn't say that I was spiritually lost, but I would definitely say I was spiritually lost at that time. He would probably also say that from a priority standpoint, he wanted me to keep swimming, and I was a tennis player. I transitioned to tennis, so he probably wanted me to keep doing that and maybe stop chasing as many of the girls as I was when I was probably 17 years old. Though he would definitely say that I was a respectful kid and took chances and took risks and stayed out of trouble.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's it's funny. I tell my parents that my mom told me to stop telling her stories about when I was a kid because she would have said that I was a good kid, and then I started telling her stories, and she was like, "Wait a minute, I had no idea that you were doing all this stuff."
Right?
But it same thing in the back country of upstate New York. It's like I get there's. You go to parties, you go to things, you're out and about, you're doing all sorts of stuff. I was never home. I was on my bike all the time, out and about. You talked about being in mosh pits. I remember looking back, going to Woodstock 99.
Sure.
So, young teenage boy, Woodstock 99, 3 days of craziness. I jumping in the mosh pits as a very small young man. I didn't hit 5 feet tall or 100 pounds till 10th grade, so I was always very small. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, very different than what my kids are going to be doing, I would imagine at that age, Yeah. And I still am shocked that my mom even let me go there, but I think she just saw it as a once in a lifetime experience. Okay, fine, go ahead. And that was one of the only times I remember her being like, okay, you can go to that instead of go to church. And I was like, wow, I don't remember, that's what, But
right.
What a different upbringing, a different view of life that brought to me those different kinds of experiences. But as you are kind of now fast forwarding and you look back at that as you called it, that young Catholic guilt, right? And there is a lot of Catholic guilt inside the Catholic Church, And you had mentioned having a fear of God, and I would challenge that to be more of a fear of the religion than it was a fear of God, right? Because a true fear of God is not a I'm scared one, right? It's a I'm honoring one,
That's right. Yeah.
But so how do you how do you translate that in your head now as you're talking to your kids about religion and about being a Christian and what that looks like in where you're at now in your belief system compared to what it was like when you were growing up?
Oh, it's so good. So we go down the Good Samaritan story. And and we look at the Good Samaritan story, and this was taught to me by a dear friend and mentor, John Maxwell. And so we bring this into the home all the time. And John was telling us the story of the Good Samaritan, but he was telling it through the lens of three different people, right? So you had the robber, and the robber's walking by, and the robber says, "Hey, what's yours is mine. I'm going to take it," right? So you've got that mentality. And then you have the Levites and the priests. They're walking by, and they basically say, "What's mine is mine. I'm going to keep it," right? And then you had the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan walks by and says, "Hey, what's mine is yours, and you can have it." That's a great space to be. That's a great space to honor, if you will. But he goes on to teach that he says, but we need to be the fourth one, really. It's great to be the Good Samaritan, but the fourth one is to realize what's mine isn't mine, and I'm here to manage it, right? So whether that's your athletic talent, whether that is your financial well-being, whether that is your whatever you want to say that from a ownership standpoint you have, it isn't yours, right? And you're just here to manage it. And that's how we lean into life and our spirituality right now. Our kids, again, 17 and 15, we have recently put them on I want to say an allowance, but it's a financial journey that we are giving them money. And we are teaching them a budgetary approach to dollars and cents. Though we are explaining to them that none of it's theirs. Right? It's not theirs. It's not even mine. Right? We're here to manage these dollars, and the very first part of those dollars, you tithe. Right? Mm-hmm. You tithe. So if I give you $300, you're not getting $300. Right? You're really going to take that 10% off the top. And so you're really getting 270, but you're not really getting 270 because we're going to teach you how to take another 30% off for Uncle Sam when the time is right. Right? So that money still isn't yours, and now you have to manage the rest of it, and it's not yours. So, and we do the same thing with their schooling, with their athleticism. Right? My son played in a tournament this past weekend, and he calls me up, and he had a loss. And again, that's all part of the game, though it wasn't someone that he was supposed to lose to. And I could hear it in his voice that he was really dejected. He was really upset. I said, okay. I said, let me ask you, though, did you do what I feel I've taught you to do? And he said, yes. He said, yes, sir, actually. And I said, okay, why don't you repeat back what I've told you to do? And you said, anybody that beats me, I am to be extremely grateful to, because that might have been their best match or their best day. And you're not mad at them. You're not upset at them because, well, they beat you. And so you are to honor them and to give gratitude and to be kind and to just overall be nice, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone beats us, I'm going to want to go play them again and beat them, right? And of course, that's his mentality. That's both their mentalities, though he just did such a good job in saying it's going to motivate me to be even better. And I know that I am to give thanks to God for this favor, right? Because this is favor, whether good or bad, favor is favor. And you are to lean into it and say, how do I manage this situation? And so that is that principle right there of really understanding that it's not ours and we're here to manage it. And manage it is it being the optimal word there of whatever we're here to manage. Loss in tennis, money that comes to you. We had a sixplex, my wife and I, that we sold. And again, it was by the grace of God that we even sold it because it wasn't on the market. It was someone that needed to do 1031 exchange. He needed to move his money, didn't really care how much he was overpaying, wanted the assets, and we sold it to him. Yeah. And we showed the kids because we talk about cash flow all the time, we showed the kids what an asset looked like, holding, selling, realizing the gains, and taking that right off the top. We wrote a check. We put our church's name on it, 10%, and we let them put it in the offering box. Nice. Right? And so again, not ours. We just managed it. Yeah. And so that's how we live. And that's what we want to constantly continue to show them through our example. But as we, again, in the financial space or in the athletic space or in the schooling space, I know that we are being rewarded by this because last year my daughter won like the leadership award, right? And the leadership award at her school it had certain parameters, but again, they saw what she was doing and serving others. And it's working. I'll just say,
I love it.
It's working.
Is that something that you've been striving for from the beginning, or is that something you had to learn to try to mold the kids in this way? Was this been trial and error, or was it something that you and your wife talked about a long time ago, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, great question. My spirituality walk is probably my new spirituality walk is probably 10 years old or so.
Okay.
10, 12 years old. And leaning into my relationship with God, leaning into what's being caught. Dana and I knew that we had to lead by example. Second marriage, and so she's bonus mom, didn't have any children of her own, but treat Addison and Amelia as her own, which is great. And their mom is still around, and she's engaged, but we decided that we were going to lean into teaching them how to serve, right? Teaching them how to serve. They live a charmed life. We live in a bubble here in Mount Pleasant. Our doors aren't locked. The keys are in the truck, right? The golf cart keys are always in there. They can do what they want. I'm looking at water out my window right now. We live a blessed life, and we wanted them to know that serving was high priority, and that's why we take them on mission trips. Right? We take them. Dana and I serve on a board of a foundation that is called Paradigm Foundation, and that is serving the ultra poor in ultra poor countries. And so we will go and we will help build houses through Paradigm. The Paradigm Homes is the parent company, and Paradigm Foundation is their foundation. And so we serve on that. And we've taken the kids on mission trips. We'll be in the DR again this year at the end of the year. And so it's serving is a big part of our world. So yes, to answer your question, we did put conscious effort into that, and it has kind of grown and morphed into what it is now.
Very good. One thing you said that I really love, and that I'm going to try to bring back to you, especially my 10-year-old, as it's more apt for him, is not only, I try to tell him all the time that the money that we have is just a tool. It's not ours anyways. Like, let's just be a good steward of it. But I don't do it as much with the talents that we have, right? Like, my son is very good at golf, but it becomes a thing for him that is, if he is not doing unbelievably amazing, then he is terrible. Right. Yeah. And it's like, hey, you could be, that is not honoring the skill that you have. Like, you are an unbelievably good golfer. And the more you honor that skill, the more likely you are going to be successful at it to continue on. Right. Because hey, it's a mindset thing and it shifts it. So I really appreciate that you said that. How much work, especially for the boy, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine for the girl, it's a little bit easier to receive that. But perhaps I'm wrong. I've only got a 2-year-old girl, so I need to be able to learn this as well. But how did you kind of communicate that to start, like, especially with a competitive, testosterone-filled boy?
Well, it's interesting. Trying to think through some stories and examples. My daughter, we have two amazing kids, right? And they both love tennis, not because I played tennis, but they chose, right? I mean, I taught tennis forever. I played professional tennis. I played in college, but they chose to play tennis. And this was probably about 2 years ago. My daughter was playing in a tournament. And she was playing up. So at the time she was 14, but she was playing in 16s. And she was having success, like really good success that even surprised me. She was playing in the semifinals, and she lost. And I could sense something was off, and I didn't say anything. And she was about 15 minutes before her next match, and I could still see that something was off. So I said, come on, put my arm out, and said, grab my arm. He goes, no, Dad. I said, no, come on. And we happened to be at a very nice country club, and so we walked over to a tee-off spot, and we just sat down. And she was like, Dad, we're not supposed to be sitting on the golf course. Well, listen, this is where they tee off. And if they come, we'll just get off, right? And I said, tell me what's going on. And she goes, I'm fine. I said, I get it that you're fine, but that's a four-letter word in our family is fine. And so is the word can't, right? And I said, well, saying fine is basically like saying F you, Dad. So you might as well tell me what's going on because I can see it all over your face. I can see in your body language. Tell me what's going on. And she said, I don't like losing. I said, okay, that's fair. I said, no one likes losing. And she said, I should have beaten that other girl. I said, okay, I totally get it. Well, welcome to life. We have highs, we have lows. What's really going on, though? And she says, all I think about is winning. I said, okay, that's good. What else? And she said, I feel like I have so much pressure on me. I said, okay. And where do you feel that pressure from? Do you feel it from me? Do you feel it from your coaches? Do you feel it from your academy? What do you feel it from? And she says, I don't know yet. Maybe. And I was like, okay. And I said, let me ask you a question. Are you identifying as someone that if they win, they're good, and if they lose, they're a bad person? I could sense it, right? Mm-hmm. And she said, I don't know. I said, do you feel like people look differently at you if you lose? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, so what I'm sensing here is that you're identifying that when you lose, that you're a bad human. You're a bad Christian. You're a bad daughter. You're a bad student. You're a bad player. And she said, yeah, I guess. I said, okay. I said, do you want to play this next match? And she said, no. I said, okay. I said, but here's what we're going to do. This is going to be your choice. I said, because you're first and foremost a child of God. Okay. God is not looking down on you because you lost that match.
Yeah.
Right. And she wasn't overly friendly after the match. And so I said, first and foremost, you are a child of God, and God is not looking down on you right now. And if anything, he probably could be a little disappointed, as I am, that you did not honor your opponent because you got beat. Mm-hmm. And so if anything, yeah, that is disappointing. Not the fact that you lost, but the fact that you didn't give love, kindness, and gratitude to the person that beat you. That could have been her best match, right? And I said, though, if you choose not to play, that's your choice. And I want you to own it. And this is not going to become a trap door, by the way, that anytime that you feel that you are not living up to the expectations of yourself, that you get to quit or stop. Though you can own this. And if you choose to do this, you can't control what your opponent thinks. You can't control what the tournament's going to think about you. You can't control what your coaches think. You can't control what I think. You can only control your actions. And she says, okay, will you come with me to the tournament desk? And I said, no. No, this is your journey, kid. And so she did. She went in there. And she went in there and she did withdraw from the 3-4 match. And she comes out and they gave her a trophy. Because it was basically a 4th place trophy. And we get home. And she did not like this trophy. Right? And so we get home and we were having her bedroom and bathroom redone at the time. So it was kind of empty, and we put it all back together, and I took that trophy and I put just like a little sticky note on the label part. And I basically just said, this is the day that you realized that you are first and foremost a child of God, right? That's it. That's it. Your identity is that. A child of God. That is it. You're not a child. You're not a tennis player. I mean, you are, but you're an amazing daughter, but you are a child of God first and foremost. So no one's looking down on you because of that, whether you win or lose. And that's the only trophy that we still have in her room right now. Wow. And she just absolutely loves to hate to see it. But when she gets that look on her face, I'll ask her and I'll just point to her. I said, do you realize who you are? And she says, yeah, I'm a child of God. And she went to church camp this year, and she 14 and just turned 15 a couple weeks ago, and she's blossoming in that space. So long-winded story to answer the question. Right now, my daughter is the one that really has to be framed in, if you will, to realize that what you have is a God-given talent, and you are to honor that talent by serving your opponents, by serving the people in your academy, by giving gratitude to your pros and coaches that are making your assignment here even better. And she's learning, which is really, really good. She's the hard-headed one, and she's learning. My son is a yes, sir. My daughter's like, why? And I was like, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, my son is a why kind of kid as well, but I've taught him to do that. I trained him that asking why is always good. I'm a why kind of person, so maybe I'm biased, but I think it's a wise way to go. But no, I appreciate that. That's one thing I talk about the skill to him all the time, and I'm sure there's other dads that do the same thing. We're strong Christians, but I do not do a good enough job of bringing that back into everyday life for them on what it actually means. Yeah. It's mostly talked about, and this is a fault, I will say, is it's mostly talked about when we're talking about church and Christian stuff, right? And it's like, no, like this needs to be a part of our everyday life all the time in everything that we're doing. So I appreciate you putting that front and center. That's definitely going to help me and hopefully some other folks listening as well. But
it's a muscle that is constantly being worked.
Yeah.
Right. It is constantly being worked. Are we reacting or are we replying? Right. It's just we're right now we're doing a digital detox, and to really fully grasp the actual time that we lose in boredom space. And so what we're doing is anytime we catch ourselves scrolling because we're bored, it's like pick up the Bible app. Just go read the daily devotional. If you're still bored, open up the chapter of where that devotional came from and read that portion of the Bible until you're finished, right? Because we could sit there and doomsday scroll for who knows how long at time. Yeah. Imagine if you filled that time with scripture. Imagine what would happen, even if it was half of the time or even a quarter of the time, that you can start to be in the Word even more. That's just powerful.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that.
Yeah. So we're on day 10 of the 21 right now.
Yeah. Thankfully, my kids aren't in the scrolling phase because they're too young. I don't have them on that stuff. But we should definitely be in the Word some more. And my wife just recently retired from the Air Force, so I'm really looking forward to she started doing some homeschool stuff, and I'm really, really excited for that because that takes a lot of work off of my plate and it helps me out a ton. Sure. But she is much more. My brain is very robotic, very analytical, very robotic, very like this is what I need to do this well. And I have not included some of the Bible stuff that I should a little bit more. And my wife is all excited about that. She wants to sit down and do Bible studies every morning, and I'm so excited to be able to actually have that be a part of my kids' life a little bit more because I've slacked on it. I've always had them do Bible lessons, but it's like it's one thing to do a Bible lesson, it's another thing to sit down and read the Word together. So I love it.
I'll tell you what we did here recently with my son is shared with him the movie or the series Chosen, and didn't push him to watch it, though he did start to watch it. And some of his language back was, I really like that show because it shows what a human Jesus was.
Yeah.
Right. And it humanizes the entire, it humanizes how the Bible even came about. At least the New Testament, right? And it's just and I see him gravitating towards that. And I was like, buddy, back in the day, people used to wear these bracelets, and it basically stood for what would Jesus do? Yeah. Right? Jesus was a kind leader that was a builder of men, right? And I was like, pay attention to that because you'll see it in Chosen how Jesus actually acts, and you'll see him come to life of what you've read in the Bible. And he's really attached to it right now, which is really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing I try to tell the boys a lot is I don't do we've talked about it, I should say. I don't tell them a lot, but I'm talking to a couple guys, former military guys, and high level dudes that are also Christians, and we're talking about how like the kindness of God is always the thing the kindness of Jesus is always the thing that's talked about, but never like the flipping of tables and the being a stern, strong man in the face of evil. And it's one of those things I'm like, hey, like that's also another attribute we need to be like. Yes, we need to turn the other cheek, but dagnabbit, sometimes we need to be able to flip a table and go for it,
right.
and like take a stand for what's right and be the man we're supposed to be. And I love the to be able to look at that. I've yet to actually watch The Chosen. I was always it's
so good.
It's one of those that I've told myself to watch, but I was like, I don't know, like it's hard for me to watch a movie depiction of Jesus, and it's like they're never going to get it right. Then there is no way to, right? And they know that, they admit that, they talk about that, but man, oh man, does it's still everybody I talk to talks about how powerful it is. So
well, they literally quote scripture in there.
Yeah.
So and you can see, and the flipping of tables. I mean, it's in there. It's one of the episodes when he does it, and you contextually reading it and then seeing it. I'm a very visual person. It's like, oh, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
Right. You can read the fortune cookie scripture and just a little bit. It's like, oh, he flipped the table. Oh, okay. Oh, now I see why he flipped the table.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Desecrating the church,
Yeah, totally.
So as you're running your business, you sound like you're extremely busy. I know you and I talked on the Delegate That podcast about some of this stuff, but it's one of those. You're running a business. Your kids are doing tennis tournaments all over the place. I think you said that you and your wife are always bouncing back and forth, splitting up to different places for tennis tournaments, all this stuff. How do you kind of manage to ensure that the business is going well? You're staying engaged as a dad, because it sounds like you're super engaged as a dad. How do you make sure that all of these chess pieces are moving in the direction they need to be moving? Yeah,
great question. Oh, you can see I have no hair, so I mean it's been it either fell out or I pulled it out. One of the two, getting to this level. No. Again, this is kind of tongue in cheek, but it's like my kids start their day at 7 a.m. and they get home at 6:30. And so I've got that big old middle there in the middle to get my stuff done. Though I do make a point. They play tennis. They play tennis literally all day long. They got 3.5 hours there in the middle of school, but they're tennis in the morning, school in the afternoon, tennis in the evening. And I purposefully and intentionally every day go over there at 5 o'clock and don't take my phone and put it down. And I'm just immersed into their world, right? So we're not having really conversations. I'm just watching, because that was my world for a long time. And that's my unplugged time. When I'm here at the office, when we're building the community, when I'm working with coaches, when I'm working with my clients, when we're doing our podcast, when I'm working with the team, we're very highly scheduled. And though they know come 5 o'clock, you're not getting me. No one's getting me. You can try, right? But here's the thing. No one's dying in our world, right? We're not doctors. We're not veterinarians where dogs are dying, or whatever. We're coaches, right? We are coaches, and we know that this is a lane to serve other people based on our skill sets. And my team doesn't need me after 5 o'clock. And if they did, it can wait till tomorrow, because you're not getting me. My truck is in my phone. My phone's in my truck, right? I don't even wear an Apple Watch, right? It's like, you're not getting me. I think that's how, and I've always been, I remember my dad coming home from swimming practices, and he was home by 5:30-ish, 6 o'clock, unless he had a swim meet. But clearly that was before cell phones, and friends weren't allowed to call between like the hours of like 6:30 and 7:30, because that was family time, that was dinner time. And then post 9 o'clock, no one could call either, because that was wind down time, right? And so now that's a completely different story with the world, the way that we're all connected now. But yeah, I just stay highly scheduled and have good margin in my day. I'd like to have more margin in the day. We're growing into that, because as my son has roughly 2 more years of school, I'll go to the university wherever he is to go watch him. I'll go spend 3-4 days tournament or match time, and then just kind of hang out with him. So it's not easy. I'll be completely honest, though. I just create boundaries.
Yeah.
Create boundaries and hold them accountable.
How much of your business? Well, before I ask that, how long have you been doing the coaching business?
So we've had I Love Coaching since 2020. So five years building this community.
Okay. And before that, what was your main business?
Yeah. Before that, I owned Keller Williams Realty Franchises.
Okay. So how much of your business world are your children aware of? Have they seen the inside of?
That's a great question. I had a SaaS model in there too. And so I used to track everything when we had quite a few different multiple streams of income. I would track it on one spreadsheet. And I used to show my son all the time to talk about passive income, right? To talk about investing, to talk about how do you get your money to work for you? And I would show him that. And what was interesting when their mom and I got divorced, man, that was an expensive one. There was a kind of part of me that died in showing him, more so my son than my daughter right now, showing him the numbers, not because they were less, but truly because I didn't want him to know how much his mom was getting, right? I didn't want to impact what he thought about her because dad was giving so much money, right? And she's never worked since they were born. And though now with, like I said, the sale of that sixplex that we had, with us giving them money. Now, we've given them money throughout the years because this was probably, I don't know, 4-ish years ago. My daughter came and said, "Hey, Dad, I've got friends that get an allowance. Can we get an allowance?" I was like, "Oh, interesting, allowance. What would you do to earn this allowance?" We'd make our bed, we'd clean the kitchen, we'd do the dishes. Addison could take the trash out. I was like, "Oh, so like standards." No, I'm not paying you for standards, right?
Yes.
And they were both sitting there because they were trying to collectively both come at me and Dana. And I said, "What do you guys want to do for a living?" And instantly, professional tennis player. "Oh, okay. That's what you want to do. Great." I said, "Well, how do professional tennis players make their money?" Instantly, my daughter chimes in. "Sponsorships." It's like, "Well, you're not wrong." I said, "But how do they make money? Because they're not going to get sponsorships unless they're playing." And then my son was like, "Yeah, they make money per round." I was like, "Right." I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. If you guys want to be professional tennis players, I'm going to treat you like professional tennis players when it comes to money." And I created this whole approach to the different levels of tennis tournaments for juniors. I think it starts at a 7 or 8, and it goes all the way up to a 1. 1 being the highest level tournament, and 7, 8 being the lowest. And so they roughly play 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. And so I gave tiering income earning opportunities. First round, second round, all the way to finals, they win it. And so that's how they made their money, right? And so they've been making money like that for a while. And so I share that story because they had their own ledgers, right? They're supposed to write their money in their journals so they could keep a tally. And because I really wanted them to learn how money worked. And now my son, this just happened this past weekend. We had some family friends over, and their son, who's probably in his mid-20s, he has a hobby of selling Pokemon cards, buying and selling Pokemon cards. And so I said, "Hey, would you mind looking at my son's?" So Addison comes out, and he's got his in a little binder from when he was like 10, 11, 12. And he's like, "Dad, what are we doing?" I was like, "Oh, this guy, he knows the Pokemon world, cards, and I know you have a ton of them, so let him look at them." He's like, "Great." And so the guy sits there and he looks at them and he says, "Would you be willing to sell some?" And Addison looks at me and said, "Don't look at me. These are your cards." He says, "Yeah, sure." And so he pulls out like 40 cards, and he said, "I could probably turn these into like $1,500. I'm just being transparent." He said, "Would you take $1,100 for them?" And Addison's eyes get real big, and he looks at me and I said, "Again, stop looking at me. This is yours, buddy. You choose to make this decision or not. They've been sitting up in your room for the better part of 10 years. You choose what you want to do." And so he says, "Sure, I'll sell them to you." And he says, "Yeah, I'll take $1,100 because I'm not going to try to go sell them. So I don't, that $500, whatever." So getting to your question, we go into the kitchen and he's sitting down and the guy Venmos him. So instantaneously he's got $1,100 more in his Venmo account. And his sister comes in the room and he's like, "Guess what?" And she said, "What?" He said, "I just sold 40 Pokemon cards for $1,100. She's like, what? And she goes, Dad, do you know how many tournaments I'd have to win to get $1,100? And I said, yep, you better figure out how to make some money. So I share that whole story because he's now sitting at the kitchen counter. And this was, again, my son has done a lot of wrong things. So I don't want the audience to hear that my son is like whatever. But he looks at me and says, Dad, how do I make this money work for me? I was like, now we're talking, son.
Yes.
That's what I want to hear, where your sister would say, hey, Dana, what can I go spend $1,100 on?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, let's do this. Let's go connect you with one of your tennis bros' dads who's a financial analysis guy, and he works in the stock world. Let's see if that's a space if you want to entertain that. He said, okay. So we connected him there, and again, he's learning how to ask the right questions, and he doesn't have an attachment to money, which is kind of cool, right? He knows, well, he doesn't know yet. He's learning that money can actually work for you versus you and your shoulders doing all the work all the time. Yeah. So that's been a fun process. And then going back to tracking, I still do a lot of tracking. I've started to let him back into the numbers now. When we sold that sixplex, they saw the numbers and they saw the proceeds of that. And by the grace of God, my 10 years of payment are almost finished to the ex-wife. I may or may not be counting that I have 7 more payments left. But at the end of the day, hey, listen, that was what it was. That was an agreement that I made. And I do share that with him now, right? I share with him how much his mom gets, and not from a judgmental standpoint, but I want him to understand responsibilities, right? That your mother and I had an agreement, and this is my responsibility. And regardless of the amount, it's an agreement, right? And you hold your agreements true. So that's I love talking money with them, because my parents did not talk money with me. Even though my mother was a CPA, we never ever talked money, ever. Yeah,
I heard my parents talk about money, but they never talked about it with me, you know, and it wasn't always the easiest conversations to hear, so slightly different experience. But it's one of those that's, I obviously I started the question with, how do they see the inside of your business? And I love the way you basically said, I'm showing them business in real life, not necessarily just what my business is, and that's one of those things that I think every dad should be doing. Every parent should be doing, is bringing real life into what for them, in context of what they are. Like my son doesn't need to sit here and go over a bunch of different marketing campaigns and different things for my business. No, like, what does it look like for you as a 10-year-old? What does it look like for you as a 17-year-old? What does it look like for you as a insert age here? And then I love that he's already thinking about how to make the money work for him, because that is something that I did not think about until I was almost 30, before I actually thought about actually saving money and doing something with it. And I was like, wow, if I can get my kids to do that now, my kids all, like, both of them want to start a business and jump into it already, even at 10 and 6, both of my boys. My 2-year-old's still slacking. She's not jumping into the business world as fast as I would like her to, but that's okay. I'll give her another couple months.
Yep. Oh yeah. Give her some leeway.
I'll give her a little bit more leeway. We'll see how it goes. So you mentioned the homeschool side. Have you and your wife been doing homeschool with the kids from the beginning? And you and your first wife too, or when did that start?
When COVID happened, they shut down the schooling system here in Charleston, and we weren't happy with where they were anyway. They started when we moved here from Los Angeles, 2012-ish. They were just starting school, and we live in a pretty neat little community here called Mount Pleasant. It's the old village, and there's just a small little community, and all the kids go to this one school that just happens to have a water view. I mean, come on, a marsh view, and we thought it was gonna be super cool. And so my son went there first, and then I could just see it, the fire in his eyes for the excitement of school was dimming. But okay, so I went to have lunch with him one day, and I could see why. It was like a library in there. right? And it was single file line. It was very, I don't want to say militant, but it was very, very high standards, which we love high standards. And I didn't get to experience a lot of fun and laughter. You know, that was just my experience of that one lunch that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I started exploring others. And at the time, we looked at this Montessori school right down the street. And we went in there, completely different environment. And what I really loved was how the Montessori process had 3 grades together.
Mm-hmm.
So that the older kids of whatever 3 grades were combined were the leaders of the group, that the kids were taught to ask the leaders question before the teachers. I was like, oh, genius, love this. We're going here. So we transitioned the kids there, and that was probably 3rd grade through 5th grade for Addison, and 1st grade through 3rd grade for Amelia. And then COVID happened, and it kind of just gave us a pause because they shut down school and they're doing PE on Zoom in their room. And I was like, that's weird. And not knowing what was going to happen yet, but yet seeing, not because they were out of school, but seeing their excitement for life again was kind of fun. And so at that point in time, they'd been playing tennis for a little while. And so now my son's going into 6th grade, daughter going into 4th grade. And there happened to be an academy that was down the street. And so I went and inspected it. And I thought, wow, this is really, really cool. So I was the one who initially went there, not thinking that my ex-wife would be open to it because she was the highly scholastic one that graduated, whatever those fancy words are, right? And her dad was a genetic, basically he's a dysmorphologist. He's a genetic doctor of babies. He's world renowned for diagnosing children with genetic issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, there's no way that they're going to let their grandchild, me, influence them to not go through the normal route.
Yeah.
And we went to it when we were still married, and I thought, this is really cool. The fact that they could be outside playing and then come inside and do basically homeschool type work with tutors, and then go play again. How much is this, and how can I afford this, right? And so we put Addison in there, and I said, and now this is post-divorce, and I said, I'll pay for it all.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pay for it all. And so he had such a good time. So he's 6th grade, and just loving it. And Amelia was getting ready to go into 5th grade, and she was like, can I do that too? And I was like, do you want to? And she said, yeah. And she was already good at tennis.
Mm-hmm.
And so went to the ex-wife and had a conversation with Dana. I was like, what do y'all think? And I kind of got some pushback. Maybe she's too young. I said, well, if she doesn't like it, then we'll just put her back in the other school and I'll pay for it. And that's been the best decision over the last 5 years now. 6 years. This is 6th year going into it. Because they're so free, right? These kids are so independent. They love school because they love tennis.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean by that. They can't go on the court as a homeschooled, tutored kid if they are behind in any of their lessons. And for all the homeschool listeners, we know it's easy to get behind in lessons.
Yeah.
And they're not bound by the traditional schooling parameters, if you will. We have tennis tournaments that start on Friday. We have tennis tournaments that end on Monday. Mm-hmm. And we may not be in school but 3 days in a week because we're traveling for tennis tournaments. And they know that, and they're cool with that. So this is funny, kind of joking. I had a parent who doesn't go to the academy say, what are you guys doing for spring break? And I was like, well, here's the thing. We don't necessarily have a quote unquote spring break because these kids have spring break all the time. Last year they were in 26 hotels throughout the year traveling. So they have spring break all the time.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle that they have now created and established through being homeschooled, they're straight A kids they put the priority of schooling first without me breathing down their neck, because they have other people breathing down their neck, which has been a massive leverage for us. They come home after long days and they still have some homework. And so we eat dinner as a family and they go right upstairs to do their homework and they get it done. My son sometimes has lessons at 6 a.m. So he knows he's got to get to bed by a certain time. He's got to get the priority that these kids, I'm actually scared for them to go to college. And I'll say why, because they have such a good core group right now, both in teachers and in classmates, that I pray that will transition into college. Yeah. Right. And I'm sure it will, but it's been the biggest blessing on the planet because they have truly developed much faster than I had developed at the ages of 15 and 17.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, there's a place down here just south of where I live that I've thought about bringing the kids to. Yeah. It's another one of the sports academy type things where they do the schooling in there and all the stuff. And it's like, man, oh man, I would love to be able to do that. You know, we hadn't had the opportunity with my wife being in, and now perhaps we do, but we'll see kind of where it goes. But hearing your story kind of helps me, think about that again a little bit more and a little bit differently. So
I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything. Right, because I give them the option every single year. Do y'all want to go to a normal high school? No. Yeah. No. Why would we want to do that? Okay, I'm just asking. Right, I'm just truly asking, because they are in control of their days. They understand now. I mean, I was probably in my similar number 30s before I understood time blocking. Right, and here they are and we did what's called a gap year, which is kind of a sports related type thing where we kept them in 8th grade and then they did freshman work and then we put them back into schooling as freshmen, but they were really sophomores. So they will have this extra year my son will graduate. Will be finished with high school with his credit hours this year, but he's a junior. And so therefore, if he wants to if he has the opportunity to get recruited at the end of this year, he can go. If not, he still has a whole nother year on paper that he's technically still in high school, but he'll do college work then. Yeah. Yeah. And that's crazy. It's just, it has positioned them so well to achieve, because I hated school. I hated school. I didn't know how to learn. Right. And I think that was just a part of my world of just getting through school, where these kids, I can see that they have respect and love the process of learning now because the environment has created it as such. Funny story. My son, when he first started, Miss Jean, who is the headmaster there, said, she called me and she says, "Hey, I want to tell you a story and you don't have to be alarmed." I was like, oh boy. Anybody that starts a story like that, I red flags already up.
Here we go.
Yep. And she said, "Well, Addison is failing to everything." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Don't be alarmed. Don't worry. We've seen this before. Kids that have come from Montessori schools come in here." She says, "But I want to tell you a story." I said, "Okay, great." And she said, we sat Addison down to do one of his first tests. And he said, "What's this?" Because in Montessori school, they don't do tests. Yeah. And he'd never really fully taken a test before. And she said, "This is a test." And he said, "Well, what's a test?" And she said, "Well, it's going to understand your comprehension of the material that we're teaching you." And he says, "Okay." And she said, "This is called multiple choice. There is a sentence or there is a question and there are possible of 4 answers, but you have to choose the right one." And she said, 2 of them are completely wrong. 1 of them is close and 1 of them is right. And she said, he looked at me and said, "Why would anybody do that?" And she said, so he took the test and he had no idea what he was doing and he failed it miserably. And she loves to tell that story because now he's a straight A student and he doesn't have test anxiety. I'm sure he has some fear of tests, but again, they're learning how to prepare. But yeah, where they are as it relates to being learning based. Again, I don't think I was learning based until I was post college even. Yeah. Right. And here they are. And I tell this to them all the time. When I went to Indiana University, the biggest regret that I have wasn't the keg stand, wasn't all of that. It was the fact that these professors gave their life, so to speak, to that topic, right? Their life's mission was to go deep into that topic that they were teaching. I mean, some of these professors were doctorates in their lane, right? And I went to class and I left class. And if I really understood what my passion was in learning space, and if that lane was something that I really wanted, I should have been a shadow to that professor.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a Big Ten school, Power 4 conference where these are legit educators, and I did not take advantage of it. And so I share that with the kids over and over and over and over and over and over and over, that when you find your passion, and if it's in a learning-based space, stay and go as deep as possible with that and learn as much as you can, because I didn't do it until I was post-college.
Yeah, the learning thing is something I'm right there with you. Like once I got a social life, I gave up on education. Like I was very good in school. I was very good in school. I specifically remember one of my science teachers. I forgot to put my name on a test, and she brought it up. She was like, "Hey, is this yours?" And she'd covered up what the score was, and I was like, "Yeah, that looks like my handwriting." And it was 100 on the test. She's like, "I knew it was yours. I just had to ask you what it, you know." And I was like, "Yeah, that was mine." She's like, "There's no way. I mean, nobody else was gonna. It was definitely yours." And like that was just me all the time. And then I fast forward, and I remember my senior year, maybe it was 11th grade, something like that. And I specifically remember just sitting here staring at this bottle of Hawaiian Punch, tapping the side of the bottle during history class, and watching these bubbles go on top. And I had, so there are two parts. One, I didn't think about it until you said it this way, but that teacher was at that time so boring and cared so little about what he was actually teaching. Mm-hmm. He cared so little about the students sitting in there that I was like, why should I even care? Right. You know, like he clearly doesn't care. So why should I even care? Mm-hmm. But then I look at it and go, okay, is he the way he is because of all the students like me sitting in there tapping their bottle? Like, am I not respecting enough what he did? And I literally never thought about it that way until you talked about that with your professors. And, you know, I want to be able to, because I'm trying so hard to get my kids to appreciate learning at a very young age, because I loved it until I didn't. And I want them to love it for the rest of their life, because there's like nobody can take away the stuff that you've learned. If it's in your head, they can't take it away. And, you know, Patrick Bet-David, I don't know if you know who he is, but big entrepreneur guy, right? He was just on that, what is that podcast where they put like 20 people that oppose your opinion around you, surrounded. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, a capitalist versus 20 anti-capitalists, right? And he was sitting there. And he one of the things he had said would happen was you could distribute all of the money in the world right now. And over a short period of time, it would end up in a majority of the hands that already have it right now. Yeah. Right. So because those people have that thought process, that work ethic, that knowledge, that understanding of where to go. And if we all just seek out how to drive like that, not everybody is going to be able to be, you know, multimillionaires. It's just like, it's not going to happen. There are barriers in people's ways, but, it's the people who are willing to drive, the people who are willing to focus, the people who are willing to push it to the next level, the people who are willing to like we talked about at the very beginning, eat your peas when you get that feedback, you know, and learn from it and grow from it. They're going to be the ones that receive more of that money in the end. And it's, you know, I'd be interested to hear from your coaching perspective, how do you look at your coaching clients in that way to be able to say, hey, like, are you feeding yourself the way you need to? Are you growing the way you need to? Like what sort of things are you pushing onto the coaching clients to help them build their people up as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, when you work with enough people and you start to really see who they are, right? It's like you're either going to have people that need to be held accountable, or you're going to have accountable people. And if you don't have people that are executing based on the discussions that you had, for whatever reason, sure, sometimes your dog eats your homework. That happens, right? Though if it's a consistent lack of execution, either they're not comprehending or they just don't care. And as I coach all the coaches, the first thing I tell the coaches is that if you are looking for your clients to be your friends, please get out of this, right? Because at the end of the day, that's not why they're paying you. They're paying you for your experience and ultimately the payoff that you have achieved. But if you aren't holding your people accountable, let them go, right? And what I mean by holding them accountable is if you say you're going to do something and they say they're going to do something and they don't do it over a period of time, you simply get to ask them what's really going on. And if they have BS answers, stop wasting your time with them. Don't be attached to the money that they're paying you. Your job is to impact people. Your job is to build people, right? And they've hired you for a reason. So yeah, that's an easy one, that if you are in the relationship with someone and they are paying you for your time and they are not following through, don't waste your time would be my suggestion. Yeah.
And I would imagine you have the same philosophy on your coaches that are coming into your community.
All day long. All day long. We are a membership-based community, so we're like a gym that they can plug into our stuff when they want to get fit, right? And it works really well, but I can definitely see the people that engage versus the people that don't engage. I mean, I just had a coach sent me a text message earlier this week, and he said, I made more in one day over Labor Day than I did at my Survivor job in an entire month. It's like, that's a coach that is implementing, right? And if I'm not getting text like that, either you're secretively holding on to your successes, or more than likely you're not having success because you're not doing the activities. Yep.
So what sort of things, for the folks that are listening that own businesses, give them a little bit of coaching right now, what sort of things should they be doing inside of their business to help them build that success, to help them grow where they need to be?
Yeah, great question. So I think it starts with vision, right? We've heard this so many different ways, though. If you don't have clarity on your vision and a vision statement, then just start there, right? I'll give you a simple sentence. To become, fill in the blank, by blank. And by doesn't mean time, by means how. To become blank by blank. When I took over my Keller Williams office here in Mount Pleasant, Charleston, I sensed that the leadership team had no direction of a vision. And so we established one. That was the very first thing we did. And it was to become the most attractive and vibrant real estate brokerage in all of Charleston, committed to a model of excellence. So we had the to become part, and that was the visionary part, by, or a how, which was our model of excellence. So anybody listening right now that is in their business space, that's the first place I would take you, is let's go really inspect your vision and your vision statement, because we know lack of vision, people perish, right? The other community is very simple, and that is to empower, right? So same thing, to become, to empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people through our real coach method, right? So when I say to empower coaches, that's not just my responsibility. That's the community's responsibility, right? That's all of our responsibilities, to empower each other to change and serve 100 million people. Now, 100 million was what we call our beach chair moment. When my father passed, I sat on the beach here in Charleston, and I call it the moment because it's when I literally leaned in as hard as I could to prayer, to scripture, to journaling, to say, God, tell me what's next, right? What do I, my coach is gone. My dad, my light is no longer here on this planet with us. What's next? What do I do? And I heard a couple things. And the first thing I heard was basically who you surround yourself with matters, and which caused me to sell all my franchises. And then 100 million. And I kept jokingly, I kept writing that number down. I was like, God, are you telling me I need to make $100 million? Am I going to make $100 million? And it wasn't until I literally leaned into that vision statement sentence, I was like, oh, that's where that fits. We are to change and serve 100 million people through our Real Coach method. And REAL is an acronym that stands for Relevant, Experiential, Authentic Leaders. And so we believe that every coach should be a real coach. Okay, so come back to your question. You got to start there. The second thing that comes from that is, if you are not sharing that vision and vision statement with the people who are supposed to be following you, that's a problem. That is a big problem. When I owned my franchises, so I bought one, then I bought another one, then I bought another one. And we changed the word staff. There was no staff. We were the vision team, right? Because we were to bring the vision to life. And so when I had one franchise, we were called the vision team. And then when I bought the other franchises up and down the coast, we were called the coastal vision team. And everyone knew what the vision statement was. Every Friday at our vision team meeting, if we had a rectangle table, we had 5, 10 people in the room, left to the person left of me, and then each week everybody sat in the same seat. They had to say the vision statement before we started the meeting. And they had to answer one question. What did you do this week to bring us closer to our vision statement? What did you do this week to bring us closer to and that's how we started every meeting, every vision team meeting. That's how we started. What did you do this week, specifically you, to bring us closer to achieving our vision statement?
That's a powerful thing. Finish taking that note.
So that would be first and foremost, is get clarity on where in the heck are you going and make sure your organization knows it.
Yeah. One thing I've tried to tell people, and I try to correlate, and I'm borderline working on a book on this, but more just like writing the notes down on how it looks, is raising your kids is similar to raising a business, like starting a business, right? When they're young, they're in that like startup stage. It takes a lot of extra work. As they get older, my goal is to get to the point where I no longer have to be the CEO. I'm just on the board of advisors when they leave my house. So I need to be able to teach them how to build their own vision statement for their life and where that goes. Do you encourage your kids to have those vision statements as well as they're kind of growing through their life?
I'm going to read it right here. So we established this, and this is really cool. And it stays at the top of my notes. So if you see me looking away, this is where it goes. But this is our family vision and money philosophies. So we wrote this back in 21. Okay. And we say that money is simply a byproduct of our faith, love, gratitude, and for everyone around us. Investing is our vehicle, establishing monthly and annual cash flows that are 100% greater than our monthly and annual expenses. Wealth is not measured wealth is not measured in money by our family. It's measured by family experiences that create lasting memories and epic family tales. And we say giving is part of our core values. This action, which is always at the forefront of our minds, giving is not limited to only money. It will include time, resources, energy, love, knowledge, money, and ideas. And then we say our vision statement. So we wrote this together. To become a family that is deep-rooted in faith, love, trust, and community. We will accomplish this by consistently living by and being 100% committed to our family values. And then we wrote out our family values.
Nice.
And everybody got to build their own portion of the family values. So faith was all of us. And have faith, love, and gratitude for God. That's number one. Number two is kindness. And this was my daughter. She said, treat others as you would like to be treated. I said, okay, Amelia, that works. Addison, my son, he said commitment. And he said, be 100% committed to all your commitments and see them through. Great. My wife, Dana, hers was generosity and was basically just give daily. And then mine was fun. And have more fun today than you did yesterday. Right? Nice. So those are our family values that we all have on our notes on our phone. And they live there. They're pinned at the top of everyone's notes on their phone. And then we have this spelled out in a big poster in our house. And so if there's ever a disagreement, get your ass to the vision statement, get your ass to the money philosophy space, and let's go talk it out. Are we in alignment or are we misaligned, and how and why?
I love that so much. And, is that something you obviously have it in your house, so it's something you guys see. Do you guys do something similar on like the Friday quote unquote meetings and be able to go over it, and your family's all able to kind of go over it and say, hey, this is what I've done? I'm not expecting it to be quite as strict as a Killer Will.
Yeah, no, definitely not how that works for you guys. Strict, but it does live upstairs. And it is in the hallway, and there's not a lot on the walls except for that. So they see it, they watch it daily. And I jokingly said when we put it up there many years ago, I was like, when Notre Dame goes onto the field, they all walk down, they touch this sign that says, play like a champion today. I expect you guys to walk by that and touch it and say, play like a champion today. But they don't ever do that.
I've got no excuses, play like a champion up in here.
There,
so I can see it. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a mandatory thing. Got to do what you got to do. So
you
I love it. My kids, we really enjoyed doing I say we, but maybe it was just me, really enjoyed putting together our family core values. We have them hanging up next to our dinner table. And I told my wife recently, I said, we need to go on an adventure together again and kind of rehash those out. It's been a few years. The kids have gotten older. Like, let's find out a little bit more in depth on what they see as a vision with our family, and what they see as core values of who we are as a family. Because it's especially in this younger ages, it's going to continue to change as they grow up on what they see as more important and less important. So I look forward to having some more of those conversations with them for sure.
Well, the other thing I would say to your question is, once you have your vision statement defined, are you really clear on your values?
Mm-hmm.
And this was a coach, a mentor taught me this when it came to establishing values. And I had never looked at it this way. He said, Adam, I want you to define characteristically some of your favorite coaches that are in your community, or some of your favorite clients, right? What are some of the characteristics that they have? And so I listed them out, and he said, okay, now pick 3 to 5 of them that are your favorite. So I picked 3 to 5 of them. And he says, great. That right there is your core values for your company. I was like, oh, that's really, really good. And so for I Love Coaching, it is be real, relevant, experiential, authentic leaders. GSD, get stuff done. And lastly, just like this one, do it all while having fun. So it's be real, get it done, and do it all while having fun are our core values. And so as we look at those that we are attracting into our community, we have our values up, we lay them against our values and say, do they align? And if they don't align, if they're misaligned, we do not get into business with them. So any CEO, chairman of the board that is continuing to build their business, get that vision statement and get those core values and put everything you have against both of those. And if it is misaligned, that's the easiest way to say no. Yeah, most entrepreneurs don't know when to say yes or no to something because they don't know the outcome of it. But I'm going to challenge that statement. As soon as I know my vision statement and my core values, I can sure as heck know what to say no to.
For sure. Yeah. Yep. I tell people that all the time when it comes to hiring and firing. Like, you could teach a skill. You can't teach the core value. If they have the core values, bring them in, and they're the right type of person, bring them in. Like, you'll figure out the job. They'll figure out what it is. You could train the job, but you can't train core values. That's one of those things you have to be able to, they either have it or they don't. So
that's right.
That's one of the things I definitely encourage folks to do, is have those core values. I love that you read your vision off here for the family, especially, and kind of given some tips for folks to be able to do that. So, well, Adam, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know you have to get going to go over to watch some tennis.
That's right.
So if folks are hearing this and they want to learn more about your coaching, or they want to learn more about you, what's the best way for folks to be able to reach out to you?
Yep. They can go find me on Instagram. It's just Adam R. Roach. And they can find us online, ilovecoachingco.com. We have our community. We have our podcast. We have our YouTube. If you're anywhere in the space that you are looking to develop a coaching business, or maybe a coaching arm of your business, we teach you how to do that, right? We teach coaches how to build businesses, scale them, and ultimately exit them if they want to. And that's where they can go find us. We have a challenge coming up. I don't know when this is going to drop. We have a challenge coming up in September on how to build a 10K coaching offer. You can find that on the website too. That's just under challenge. And then we have a big event coming up in October, and that'll be basically an intensive, a day and a half intensive on how to build a $250,000 coaching business.
Awesome. Yeah, that is fantastic. Obviously, everybody listening, you can hear Adam's got a ton of value to add. He's been doing this for a while. He knows what the heck he's talking about. And if you guys don't know what Keller Williams does, there's a lot of the coaching and training and education that goes into that that I'm sure you have put to use throughout your career, because they've got an intensive program there as well. So, Adam, I love what you're doing. I appreciate what you've shared with us today. I'm positive that everybody else does as well. I thank you and honor you for being a involved father who is raising strong Christians as well as competitive folks who who are going to go out in the world and do great things. So thank you so much for what you're doing, you and your wife are doing. Everybody listening, please reach out to Adam. Tell us in comments what your favorite part of this conversation was. Let us know what we can do to improve your life, where we can make this better, and share this with somebody that you think is going to get something out of it. So Adam, thank you. Everybody listening, I appreciate you, and we will see everybody on the next show.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.